Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Natalie Renew, and I'm the Director of Homegrown. And I'm really pleased that you all could spend some time with us discussing the Paycheck Protection Program this afternoon. I'd like to quickly acknowledge my colleague, Karen Tylek, and our amazing communications team, Sam Wong and Lena Kaiser, who are also joining us today. I also just, before I introduce our guests who will be leading the webinar today, really want to quickly acknowledge what a difficult and challenging time this is for our communities, for our country. And while we are really committed to supporting home-based providers during this time, also know that this is a challenging time, and hope that you feel safe here, and if you need to leave at any time or whatever you need to do, that's okay. And really want to share with you that we're committed to supporting home-based providers. Thank you so much for being here, and we're really grateful. I am joined this afternoon with Gary Romano, who is the CEO of Civitas Strategies. And Gary is, really amazing, and you're going to really enjoy your time with him and his colleague Najibe, who he will introduce. But to say that Gary runs a management consulting firm that supports nonprofit partners that are really committed to improving the lives of children and families. But really why he's here today is because after sort of asking many people many times who's doing this work the best, who has actually been successful in helping home-based providers connect and access the PPP, Gary really stands, him and his team really stand ahead, of the pack. And so I'm really so thrilled that he can join us this afternoon. And we'll give him a chance to sort of introduce himself and his colleague Najibe as well. So before we get going, we're going to put up a really quick poll and ask you to share a little bit of information about kind of your questions for today. I feel almost certain that we're going to cover them, but tell us kind of how you're coming to the meeting today, where you're starting from. And we're going to be sharing a lot of information today, but would love to kind of know where you're at to get going. And while you take a minute to fill out this poll, I'm just going to share a couple of Zoom tech tips with you. I know many of us are spending a lot of time on Zoom, but if you're unfamiliar with the format or just need a reminder, here are a couple of things to keep in mind. All participants will be muted through the call just to reduce background noise and make sure that everybody can hear. If you're not already there, you can see at the bottom of your page, there's sort of a bubble that says Q&A. And that's really where we're going to ask you to share your questions. You can put questions in there throughout our meeting today, and we're going to try to cover as many of those questions towards the end of the webinar. But I also think we're really going to, cover off on a lot of questions throughout our discussion today. I also want to make you all aware that we are recording this webinar to share with others who couldn't be here with us today. So just want to make you aware of that and ensure that you consent to that. And I also want to share with you that we are really aware that there have been some issues with Zoom spammers and things like that, and our team is ready to address any issues that arise, and so that we hope this is not something that you will need to worry about here today. So with that, I'm just going to share my really sincere thanks and gratitude for you making the time to join us this afternoon. And I'm going to turn it over to our expert, Gary, to get us going. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Natalie. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. As Natalie mentioned, I'm Gary Romano, President and CEO of Civitas Strategies and the Luminary Evaluation Group. I've been doing this work both in the public and private sector for 25 years. I've authored 2 books, and I've been doing systems level early learning work since 2005, so some familiarity with the field. And Najibe is going to be translating for me today. She's one of our consultants. I don't know if you want to start with that slide, and then we'll move into your introduction.
No problem.
Okay.
Él se llama Gary Romano, el presidente de Civitas Strategies y el grupo de evaluación luminaria. Tiene más de 25 años de experiencia trabajando en la tragedia privada y pública. El autor de 2 libros y también desde el 2005 tiene experiencia apoyando aprendizaje temprano a niveles de sistemas.
And Najibe, as I mentioned, will be here throughout today. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Najiba Kaplan. I am currently a consultant with Civitas Strategies, providing PPPTA in English and Spanish. I am Chief of Staff at Project Ready, and prior to that, I worked at North Public Schools for 15 years with the Office of Early Childhood. Yo soy una consultora con Civitas Strategies, demostrando asistencia técnica en inglés y español para el programa PPP. Anteriormente era asistente especial para la escuela pública de la ciudad de Newark y tengo más de 15 años de experiencia ayudando negocios en públicos sin fines de lucro y sectores privados.
Excellent. So today we're going to be focusing on home-based care very specifically. We're going to be talking about the Paycheck Protection Program, giving you an overview of it. We're going to run through the application process, and we're going to also talk about ways that you can get help through the process.
Los objetivos de hoy son, nuestro enfoque hoy es el cuidado infantil en el hogar. Vamos a hablar del programa de protección de cheques de pago, la descripción general del programa, explicar el proceso de solicitud y el proceso de proporcionar y recibir asistencia técnica.
Some key points around the Paycheck Protection Program, and we'll get into more and more detail throughout this webinar. The idea of it at the highest level is to keep people employed through the coronavirus crisis. And this can be one person. So if you're sole proprietorship or you're self-employed, that's you, right? You don't actually need to be operating, right? So you don't need to have open doors and taking care of kids right now in order to qualify. It's provided in the form of a loan that is forgiven if you keep staff on or rehire them, as well as, and that includes yourself, over an 8 to 24 week period. And we'll talk more about what that means. And there's around $100 billion of funds in the program that still remain.
Algunos puntos de clavo del programa es para mantener la persona empleada durante la crisis de coronavirus. Puede ser una sola persona, propietaria única o autoempleado. No es necesario estar operando. Está proporcionado en forma de un préstamo que se perdona si usted mantiene el personaje o vuelve a contratarlos durante un periodo de 8 a 24 semanas. Puede ser más largos. El proceso está cambiando. Por ahora hay más de 100 billones de dólares en fondo para mantener la segunda estándar del programa.
So just a little bit more background, and this will explain part of why the program is shaped the way it is that there is the assumption of a V-shaped recovery. So that means a short recovery from, we'll get to one end to the other, all will be back to normal. What we're seeing is more of what is likely to be a Nike swoosh, so more of a longer recovery, or potentially a W, where we'll have a recovery and then we'll have another outbreak or another issue, which will lead to some additional closings and then recovery again. So the program, again, was built for something a little bit different at the start. So that may be part of what you see in terms of the way it may or may not fit with your operations.
El programa inicialmente estaba diseñado como una letra V, para la recuperación, pero ahora se está viendo más como el símbolo de Nike, que comienza pero después cambia un poco y posiblemente se puede ver en forma de W, que comienza y después cambia con la segunda stanza, o si hay otra ronda de enfermedad también puede cambiar.
So to be clear, almost any small business can apply. You need to have under 500 employees on average, 1 year total. It's for nonprofits and for-profits. Sole proprietorships and self-employed count. So if you're one person, you can do this. The PPP is already funding home-based care providers, as Natalie mentioned. So this is not something that's absolutely new. And as you can see on the slide, you know, if you're an owner-director and you're a sole proprietor, you can apply. If you have a person who works for you, who let's say is a contractor and is self-employed, she can apply separately. So you can see that, you know, in both cases, there's an opportunity to apply.
Casi todas las empresas pequeñas pueden aplicar. Tiene que tener menos de 500 empleados, promedio de durante un año, el número total, organizaciones sin fines de lucro y para obtener beneficio también pueden aplicar. Propietario único y autónomos, una persona cuenta, pueden aplicar. Y la PPP ya está financiando proveedores de cuidado de niños en el hogar. Puede ser un dueño solo o puede ser un contrato que usa el 1099.
So eligibility, you need to reside in the US. You must not currently be under indictment or convicted for a felony in the past 5 years, and you haven't defaulted on an SBA or a government loan within 7 years.
Los puntos de elegibilidad: tiene que vivir en los Estados Unidos, no puede tener un récord crimen en el último 5 años y no puede tener un préstamo de asociación de negocio pequeño que no ha pagado entre 7 años.
So let's talk about how it works. And again, we're going to get into more and more detail as we go. So originally what you do is, or in the first step, you apply for the loan, and you do that through a bank. We'll talk more about that. And the loan is provided at 2.5 times your average monthly salary in 2019. There could be some other periods, but 2019 is usually easiest to do. When you receive the money in the loan, so when it hits your account, you have an 8 to 24 week period after the loan, and the funds would be forgiven. So in other words, the debt is eliminated. So essentially it's now your money, based on your total payroll, employee headcount if you have employees, and rent, utilities, and mortgage interest at 40% of the total. So there's a cap there. And again, we'll get into more details as we go through. Any funds that remain are at a loan, remain a loan at 1% interest due in 2 years. And those can only be used for payroll and business-related utilities, mortgage interest, and rent. So to be clear, like you can't take the remaining loan and pay off a personal credit card, for example.
La función del plan de protección de nómina: el cálculo del monte del préstamo, préstamos hasta 2.5 veces su salario promedio mensual. El perdón: la deuda es eliminada durante las 8 semanas después de recibir el préstamo. Los fondos son perdonados base en su total de nómina, empleado, cuenta de alquiler, servicio público y intereses hipotecarios hasta 40%. El resto del préstamo te queda debiendo un interés de 1% y tiene 2 años para pagarlo, pero tiene que usar el préstamo para pagar las utilidades, la renta, la nómina. No lo puede usar para pagar su tarjeta de crédito personal.
So let's have an example. So for the loan calculation, let's say for the sake of argument, I made easy numbers for me, that your average monthly payroll is around $10,000. The minimum loan would be $25,000. The money hits your account. Let's say you opt for the 8-week forgiveness period. You've had $20,000 in payroll and $3,000 in utilities and rent. So that's $23,000 in total that gets forgiven. The remaining $2,000 is now a loan at 1% interest due in 2 years. You don't owe anything more.
Un ejemplo, si el promedio de la nómina mensual es $10,000, el máximo del total del préstamo es $25,000. El perdón, la deuda eliminada durante las 8 semanas después del préstamo tenía $20,000 en nómina, $3,000 en servicio público o alquiler. El resto del préstamo, que son los $2,000 que sobran, ahora es un préstamo con 1% de interés. Tiene 2 años para pagarlo, no debe nada más.
So if we just think about the PPP and home-based childcare in particular, benefits are it's going to provide you with much needed revenue, potentially. It can cover a portion of your rent, utilities, and mortgage interest if you normally deduct those on your taxes. It can also support employees if you have them, not contractors, so not 1099s, but if you have a W-2 employee, they can be included on it. The disadvantage, unused loan debt is debt, right? So you want to be cautious going forward. And the forgiveness policy, the mechanism, all the details on how the loan converts to a grant, we don't have all the details yet. So there is a bit of uncertainty there.
Una cuanta ventajas son el mecanismo de perdón proporcionado ingreso es muy necesario. Puede cubrir la parte del alquiler, los servicios públicos y los intereses hipotecarios. También pueden apoyar a los empleados, pero no a los contratistas. Las desventajas son que los préstamos no utilizados siguen siendo deuda, si necesita tener precaución en el futuro. La póliza del perdón todavía está siendo detallado. Ese es otro proceso que todavía no estamos claros, pero esos son las ventajas y desventajas del programa.
So, a little bit more detail on the PPP and unemployment. Unemployment may be more, is certainly going to be more potentially than what you make as a provider through July 2020, maybe beyond that. We just don't know because of that $600 additional fund. The PPP does keep your business running and does pay for some of your rent, utilities, and mortgage interest. The key thing is to know is that you can't have both at the same time. So if you are drawing unemployment actively, you can't have PPP revenue and vice versa.
El desempleo puede ser más hasta julio 2020 y después de allá porque le están dando $600 más. El programa de PPP mantiene su negocio funcionando y paga por algunos de los servicios públicos y alquiler. El problema es que no puedes tener los dos a la misma vez. Si está cobrando el desempleo, no puede cobrar el préstamo de PPP.
So, if we get into a little bit more detail on that loan amount calculation, the pay is salary, even if it's just you, right? We'll talk about the sources for these numbers in a minute. Wages for anyone that you're paying who is a W-2 employee, it is capped at $100,000. So in other words, if you make more than $100,000 a year, you can't have more than the average monthly salary of a person making $100,000. And again, it's employees only, not 1099s. Benefits, paid time off that you pay for is included in that loan amount calculation. Healthcare and retirement that's officially provided through your company. And also state and local compensation taxes. So for example, if your state charges you unemployment taxes, that's included. Federal, not included. So it's just the state compensation taxes.
El cálculo del préstamo promedio de 12 meses, el pago es su sueldo, incluso si a ti solo el salario está limitado a $100,000, es para empleados solamente, no 1099. Los beneficios son los tiempos libre pago, los beneficios médicos y el retiro. Y los impuestos son impuestos locales y estatales, no federales.
And I'm trying to concurrently keep an eye on some of those questions that we might weave in when appropriate, because some of them are going to be answered later, I promise. But there's a really good question about if I don't pay myself regularly, does it still count? Yes, it does. And we'll talk about how to do record keeping on that. But, just because, let's say you pay yourself, as one provider we spoke to said, I wait until my account gets kind of big enough and I feel comfortable, and then I take some money out for me. Still, as long as you're reporting your taxes and everything, you would still be eligible.
Una pregunta que alguien preguntó es si normalmente no te pagas regularmente, pero te paga, si puede cualificar. Y la respuesta es sí, si lo cobra, si lo pone en tu taxes, lo puede usar para eso. Y vamos a hablar un poco más de eso después.
So let's talk about some of the supporting documentation, right? Because this is where it gets a little bit harder, right? You have these numbers, Gary, but where did they come from? If you're an independent contractor, right? What you'll want to do is, first and foremost, if you do a tax return with a Schedule C, that's the easiest method. And I saw there was a question saying, I do a Schedule C, what's my salary? You go all the way to the bottom, that net revenue, or that net profit, excuse me, at the bottom of the form, that's what you would be reporting. If you do bookkeeping and you keep it up to date, you'd have an annual net profit there. Another alternative is your 1099 miscellaneous or your 1099K for 2019. These are all 2019 numbers. Again, if you're self-employed, that Schedule C. If not, you'll want to have your 2019 bookkeeping up to date if you have it, and use that. But again, the easiest, the best one overall is that Schedule C, alternatively that 1099 miscellaneous or 1099K.
La documentación de apoyo para la aplicación para los contratistas independientes y trabajadoras por cuenta propia puede ser una sola persona. El 1099 contratista independiente, el 2019 declaración de impuestos, la lista C es el método más fácil para completar esta parte de la calculación. La alternativa es, tendré que tener su contabilidad del 2019 para estar al día para poder determinar su beneficio neto anual. La alternativa es todos los 1099 miscellaneous o los 1099K para el 2019. La documentación para los autoempleados son los del 2019 declaraciones de impuestos, la lista C. Este es el método más fácil también para completar esta parte, y la alternativa para eso es tendrá que tener su contabilidad del 2019 para estar al día, para poder determinar su beneficio neto anual.
Excellent. So if you do have employees, right, a little bit different, you're going to want to have your company's W-2s. That's the easiest way to do it. Because again, you do have to have those W-2s. If they're 1099s, they don't count. Alternatives would be your federal 941. That's your quarterly report to the federal government on payroll. And then finally, payroll reports you may have if you use a payroll company. For the state contribution to taxes, you should be doing state quarterly filings, or your payroll company will have it. Oops, excuse me. And finally, see, I'm trying to move the Q&A box. Sorry about that, so I could read the rest. Any contributions to benefits, you're going to want to have invoices. You're going to want to have plan documentation. So this isn't just, I went to the doctor, I paid a copay out of my pocket. It has to be an official company program.
En la documentación de apoyo para la aplicación para los probadores que tienen empleados, salarios, comisiones o compensaciones similar. El W2 de la compañía del 2019 es el método más fácil para completar esta parte del cálculo. La alternativa, el 2019 presentaciones trimestral federales 941 o informes de la compañía de nómina o programas de contabilidad. La contribución del empleado a los impuestos solo en el estado, no federal. La presentación trimestral del empleador estatal 2019, completar esta parte del cálculo. Alternativas, el 2019 presentaciones trimestrales federales 941 o informes de la contabilidad o documentación de las contribuciones de empleado de empleador para los impuestos estatales y locales. La contribución del empleado a los beneficios, preferiblemente facturas para la parte empleadora de la cobertura de salud del grupo para el año 2019, preferible contribuciones al plan de retiro, documentadas al parte del plan o informe de nómina, alternativas, documentación de la contribución de empleado a través de los informes contables. That's a lot.
I know it is a lot. And before you can escape this slide, Najibe, I want to answer one of the other questions that we've gotten on both chat and in the Q&A. This has to be 2019 numbers that we're talking about here. So if you have your 2018 taxes, you cannot use them for this. And the banks will ask for proof. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you want it to align with your 2019 taxes. If you haven't gotten them done, I would strongly recommend get them in or use the same numbers that you are going to use for your 2019 taxes. This is not a time to have a difference.
Una de las preguntas es de qué año puedo usar los taxes. Tiene que ser del 2019, no puedo usar del 2018. Si no ha llenado los taxes del 2019, tiene que usar los números que va a usar para cuando lo llene o lo llena primero y después aplique para esta aplicación.
Excellent. So the forgiveness process, we are seeing some changes as we speak. Some of these updates that we've included in here, and we'll talk more about them in a minute, were literally just signed Friday by the president at 11:30 a.m. So we're still understanding the ramifications of them. But as it stands right now, part of this looks familiar, right? You have pay, right? Salary and wages, they're capped at the 100,000 again. Employees only, not 1099. Your head count becomes important. So if you do have W-2 employees, how many you're bringing back and when becomes a factor. Benefits, paid time off, healthcare, retirement, those state and local compensation taxes, not federal. But now we're seeing up to 40% of forgiveness can be for non-payroll. So rent, utilities, and mortgage interest. We do not have an official thumbs up yet, but the guidance we currently have does seem to accommodate the time-space method. So if you are already doing time-space or some sort of method where you are taking these non-payroll costs off your taxes, you would be eligible to do it here.
Los préstamos perdonados, 8 a 24 semanas después de recibir el préstamo, el pago limitado a $100,000 solo para empleados, no para 1099. El número de personajes es importante. Los beneficios, el tiempo de descuento pago, los beneficios médicos y el retiro. Los impuestos no federales, compensaciones estatal y local. Y la parte que no es la nómina que cualifica es el alquiler, las utilidades, el interés hipotecarios y el máximo 40% del total. Y eso es lo que está cambiando. Antes era 25% y ha cambiado a 40%. So, el préstamo y lo que le defina está cambiando.
So as mentioned, the president just Friday signed the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act of 2020. And there's some things we know. So forgiveness went from just 8 weeks to 8 or 24 weeks. We don't know if you could cut it somewhere in between yet, but we know it can be up to 24 weeks. The split between forgiveness that's for payroll and for rent, utilities, and mortgage interest is now broader. So you could have up to, used to be 75%, you can now have 60% payroll and up to 40% rent, utilities, and mortgage interest. FTEs, if you have them, so if you have W-2 employees, they need to be restored by the end of 2020, and the loans can be up to 5 years at 1%.
La ley de flexibilidad que pasó recientemente, esto es lo que sabemos, que va a poner al perdón a 24 semanas, pero la 8 semanas todavía es una opción. 60% a la nómina, 40% a la renta y las utilidades y el interés hipotecario. Si tiene empleado, tiene que traerlo para atrás antes del final del año, antes del diciembre 2020. Y los préstamos que pueden durar hasta 5 años al 1%.
Excellent. And so what we don't know if forgiveness is going to be capped at around 8 weeks. So is it 8 weeks of forgiveness, so 8 out of 52 weeks in the year, or is it 24 out of 52? It's not clear. The other thing is, we're not sure how the 2-year loan becomes a 5-year loan. We don't know who has the authority yet to do that or under what circumstances it would happen.
Lo que no estamos muy claro es si el préstamo va a ser de 8 semanas perdonado o 24 semanas. Y también si los préstamos de 2 años, cómo se convertirían a 5 años y quién tiene la autoridad para hacer esa decisión.
And just to answer one of the questions, because it's pertinent to this moment, we were asked, so, is this a change? Is there a new effective date? This change is live. It has happened. The problem is Congress didn't have enough detail in it. So we have to wait for the SBA and the Treasury to give us more details. So that's part of the what we don't know stuff. But this change has happened. It's federal law.
La pregunta es, ¿cuándo este cambio va a estar en efectivo? El cambio ya pasado, está aprobado por el Congreso. El problema es que no han puesto mucho detalle en cómo se va a hacer este proceso. Pero es ley y estas son las leyes que pasaron recientemente.
So a few other key points. One, the money, and when it's just a loan, is limited use to payroll, business, rent, utilities, and mortgage interest, right? So you can't just write a check to your personal mortgage because you feel like it, or pay off a credit card bill. We've been asked those questions. It's a fair question. Unfortunately, in this loan, you cannot do that. There's no collateral or personal guarantee required. The personal guarantee is being made by the federal government. However, banks may ask you to do a high-level credit check. It's not the same as when you apply for a credit card or a loan, but they may ask you for that. Payments are deferred for the first 6 months, and that actually may expand out, is what it looks like. So it may be longer. After that, it's a 1% fixed interest rate, that accrues from the start of the loan. And there's no prepayment penalties or fees. So if at the end of the forgiveness period, you want to return the money to the bank and be done with it, anything that remains, you absolutely can with no prepayment penalties.
Otro puntos clavo está limitado a usar para la nómina, la renta del negocio, las utilidades y los intereses de hipotecario. No se requiere collateral. Can't get that one out. O garantiza personal. Los bancos pueden preguntar sobre el crédito. Los pagos son diferidos por los primeros 6 meses y 1% fijo de interés se acumula al inicio del préstamo y sin sanciones se paga temprano. Si pagan temprano.
So 2 more examples for you to just kind of give you a little bit more of a sense of some different scenarios. So let's say you're a 1099 contractor, you work for a home-based provider. You made $2,500 a month on average in 2019. That means you can get a PPP loan for up to $6,250 using your 1099 as an example or as evidence of that salary. Your potential forgiveness, let's say you're doing, because of the $2,500 a month, you do it over an 8-week period, that would be at least, $5,000. Again, it's currently unclear if it may be more. The balance of the loan, the $1,250, would be a 1% loan for payroll. Now, this is assuming, because you're a contractor, you're not already writing off your home for business use. So you can't do that if you haven't already. So that's why you don't see the rent, utilities, and mortgage interest.
Ejemplo número 1, si eres un contratista de 1099, trabaja en un centro infantil en la casa, en un hogar, y cobra $2,500 mensual promedio en el 2019. Usted puede obtener el préstamo de PPP para $6,250 usando el 1099. Lo que le perdonan es al menos $5,000, pero no estamos claros si puede ser más. El $1,250 en 1% de interés se puede usar para las cosas que no son nóminas. sin penalidad.
Second example, let's say you're the owner, you're a sole proprietor, you have a home-based enterprise, you're making $3,000 a month on average in 2019. You have a part-time employee who's on a W-2 that makes on average $500 a month. You also paid $200 in a month in state employment taxes. In this case, you can get a PPP loan for up to $9,250. The potential forgiveness, at least $6,000. Again, we're still waiting for further clarification. It could be more than that. Potentially $1,000 for the employee and $400 in state taxes. If you do the time and space calculation, let's say you come out with $1,200 for that, and the result is only $650 that would be left as a balance in an actual loan. The rest of the money has been forgiven, and that could be returned without penalty at that point.
Ejemplo número 2. Vamos a decir que usted es dueña del negocio y el negocio está en la casa de cuidar del niño y cobró $3,000 mensual promedio en el 2019. Tenía un empleado que trabajaba part-time y usa un doble-2. Y el empleado cobraba $500 mensual. Pagaste $200 mensual en estatales, en impuestos estatales, y puede cualificar para un préstamo del PPP de $9,250. Lo que perdonan es $6,000. No estamos claros si es más. $1,000 para empleado y $400 para impuesto estatal. Y usan el método de tiempo y espacio para la calculación, que sale por $1,200 en su casa. El balance del préstamo, que es $650, lo debería a 1% y también lo puede devolver sin penalidad si lo quiere devolver más temprano.
So how to apply? It's a simple application that you'll see from the SBA. However, that's their application. You actually need to apply through a bank. The application from the SBA is in Spanish, but not the bank portals. So do be aware of that. You want to apply to more than one bank. You can apply to as many banks as you want. You can only accept one loan, and the SBA has it set up so they can't really issue you more than one. But you know, the responses almost seem random from the banks as to how fast they get back to you. So if you do want to get in on the PPP, having more than one application in is a very important thing to do.
¿Cómo aplicar? La aplicación es simple. Tiene que aplicar por un banco, a través de un banco. La aplicación está en español, pero los portales del banco no. Puede aplicar a más de un banco, no puede aceptar más de un préstamo. Y la respuesta de los bancos, no sabemos cuáles ellos cogen y cuál no cogen. Pero por eso que es importante aplicar a más de un banco.
So the bank game, the banks become very important because they are the way you apply. And, you know, and this will answer a question that just popped up. You can apply from your own account, your own bank, the one you're currently using. Typically, they require the traditional banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, et cetera. They want you to have a business account. They tend to be slower. They have very little financial incentive to move quickly on this. They're not making a lot of money on it. Rightly or wrongly, that's the way it is. There is a community bank set aside. If you use a community bank, the community development financial institutions also now have a set aside. There's not a huge number of them participating at this point. On the other side of it, what we found in the work that we've been doing in New Jersey with providers just like you is that the financial technology companies tend to be faster. They don't require an account. So whether you've never dealt with them before, it's fine. Fundera, PayPal, Funding Circle, Cabbage has been a little bit problematic as of lately, but at least those three are really moving applicants through very quickly. So what you may want to do is, if you do want to apply through your own bank, that's great, but consider some of these others as well. If you apply through a CDFI, great. Consider some of these others as well.
El juego del banco. Los bancos tradicionales necesitan tener una cuenta con ellos. Son un poco más despacio. La mayoría tienen poco incentivos financieros. Los bancos comunitarios tienen una margen que han puesto para el préstamo y las instituciones financieras del desarrollo comunitario ahora tienen una reserva de 10 billones que han puesto para el préstamo. La empresa de tecnología financiera son más rápidos y no necesita cuenta. Y hay unos cuantos que tenemos la lista aquí, Fundera, PayPal, el Funding Circle y la última Cabbage son rápidos, pero ha sido un poco más problemático recientemente.
And just to answer one of the questions real quick, because it's pertinent here, some credit unions are participating. You would need to check with your credit union.
Una de las preguntas si las uniones de crédito están participando y algunos sí, pero tienes que chequear con tu banco.
So some opportunities for free help. If you do need help with the loan, it is not surprising. It is, as we've talked about, there are some complexities here. So this is not a time to feel bad about needing help. These three organizations, the Association of Women's Business Centers, SCORE, the US SBA Small Business Development Centers are all offering free help. You could reach out to them via the websites.
Ayuda gratis. Si requiere ayuda, puede usar uno de estos tres recursos. La Asociación de Centro Empresarial de Mujeres, el SCORE y el Centro de Desarrollo de Pequeño Negocio de la SBA de los Estados Unidos. Y todos son gratis.
Some final points. One, the benefit is real. There is an opportunity here. The banks, as mentioned, are going to have their own requirements. They have their own process that is based on the SBA's, but there may be some differences. And they're going to vary in speed. The forgiveness process is still being defined. So if you have a PPP, if you want to get a PPP, you're going to want to stay attuned to what's happening. If there are questions, you can email us. My firm would be happy to answer every question we can at ppp@civstrat.com.
Los puntos finales, el beneficio es real. Los bancos van a tener diferentes requisitos y van a variar en velocidad. El proceso de perdón todavía está siendo definido. Y si tiene preguntas sobre el proceso o cualquier cosa, nos puede mandar un correo electrónico a la dirección que está en la presentación.
So before we open up for questions, I'd like to thank Najibe for her time today, not only providing translation, but also sparing you my horrible Spanish accent and butchering such a beautiful language by mixing it with English and Italian. So thank you, Najibe.
Thank you.
And for dealing with my freestyling through the presentation as well.
Fine. Thank you for having me.
So Natalie, I was going to look to you for questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Gary and Najibe. There are a lot of questions. So before we start with the questions, I just want to share a couple of announcements before we dive in. Firstly, following this webinar, you will receive an email with additional information. The recording will be made available, and we will share the PowerPoint or a version of the PowerPoint with you for follow-up. So we will also make sure that that email address is available to you, and some additional resources. So please expect a follow-up email from us. I also want to say there's no way we will cover all the questions that we've got today. I've tried to bucket them out a little bit so that we can get through as many as possible, but we will follow up with you if we do not get to your questions. And I will also tell you that on Thursday night, we will be running the same webinar with Gary and Najibe. If it's helpful for you to hear it again and have this experience again live, we invite you to join us for that again, because it is a lot of information to cover, and it is complex. So with that, I'm going to sort of dive into the questions, and I've tried to sort of bucket them, and I'll try to combine as many questions as possible so that we can cover as much as possible. So I'm going to start with a really quick one. Is an SBA loan and a PPP loan the same thing?
It depends. So the PPP loan is ultimately from the SBA. Chances are that when somebody is talking to you directly about an SBA loan, it's a 7A loan. That is not the same program.
La pregunta es si el préstamo de PPP y el préstamo de la Asociación de Negocios Pequeños son iguales. El PPP es un tipo de préstamo de la Asociación de Negocios Pequeños, pero hay otro préstamo que ellos también ofrecen que no son iguales.
Great, thank you. So the next little set of questions all relate to employee-employer relationships. So I'm going to just ask a couple questions, and maybe you can combine the answer if that makes sense, Gary.
Sure.
So the first question is, I have no employees, can I apply? The next question is, my daughter helps me out, but I don't give her a paycheck. Could I use PPP to pay her? If I had an employee who was a contractor in 2019, but is now a true employee, can I, pay her through PPP? I'll stop there.
Okay. So if it's just you, yes, you can apply. If it is your daughter or somebody else who you have not been reporting on a W-2, whether you're paying them cash, whoever it is, you can't. If it's not on those taxes, you can't do it. For the contractor who's now on payroll, so here's the issue. Depending on when you hire them, and feel free to email me with the specifics of that ppp@civstrat.com email address. We can go through some of the specifics. But in 2019, you wouldn't be able to count them for the loan amount. However, if they're now an employee, you would be able to draw on forgiveness. So it wouldn't boost your loan, but it would boost your forgiveness.
La pregunta era si es empleado solo, si puede aplicar. Sí, si nada más es usted puede aplicar. La otra pregunta es, mi hija trabaja conmigo, pero yo no le pago con cheque. Si tu hija no está recibiendo un W-2, no puede ponerla en la aplicación. Y la tercera parte de la pregunta fue, oh my God, I forgot the third part of the question.
The third one was the person who was a contractor who's now an employee. So they can't get the loan boost, but they can get the boost on the drawdown, on the forgiveness.
La tercera parte de la pregunta fue alguien que contractita el año pasado, pero ahora es empleado. Ellos cualifican, no van a cualificar para el préstamo, pero van a cualificar para el perdón.
Great.
Excellent.
Okay, so the next cluster of questions I'm going to ask relate to PPP and unemployment insurance and benefits. So the first question is, what do I do if I'm currently receiving unemployment but have also applied for PPP? Should I inform the bank or the Department of Labor? What action should I take? And then another question is, when unemployment runs out, could I then apply for PPP? Yeah, I'll leave those two.
Oh, good. Okay, so the first one, until you actually have the PPP and you're in the forgiveness phase, there's nothing to report, right? Because you don't technically have the loan right now. When you are drawing down those funds, you would need to, because you're saying to the federal government, I have a full-time job and my full-time job is the PPP. So that becomes something that you're going to want to report in terms of unemployment. For the other person who said, I'm on unemployment right now, when it ends, should I go for the PPP? I don't know your personal financial situation. I would strongly say it would be something to really look at, because especially if you've exhausted, the other day we had a question from a provider who said, I'm going to exhaust my unemployment insurance at the end of July. Should I then apply for the PPP? And there's nothing wrong with that. You can absolutely do that.
Great.
I know it was like so long, Najibe. At least I didn't use the word
taking notes.
squirrely like I did the other day.
I
So,
was taking notes, so I'm good.
okay.
El desempleo, la pregunta era de desempleo. Si tú estás colectando ahora, tú no tienes que reportar que va a aplicar para un préstamo. Es cuando obtenga el préstamo y lo comienza a usar, es cuando le tienes que dejar a la agencia del desempleo notificarlo que ya está recibiendo este préstamo y no puede colectar. La segunda parte de la pregunta era, cuando se me acabe el desempleo, ¿puedo aplicar para el préstamo? Nosotros no te podemos decir sí o no, pero lo que recomendamos es que cuando se te acabe, tiene la oportunidad para aplicar para el préstamo de PPP.
Great. So the next cluster of questions are sort of around documentation of salary. So the first question is, should we use the net earnings from the Schedule C, or the gross income from the Schedule C? There's another question that says, is it even worth applying if on my Schedule C line 31, I'm only reporting $1,500? There's also a couple questions around whether you really can't use your 2018 Schedule C.
So I assure you, you cannot use your 2018 Schedule C. There's some cases where you could use some 2020 numbers before the pandemic. Those are very specific. Otherwise, it is very clear from the guidance that it has to be 2019. It does have to be net Schedule C. Because what we're saying is, after all those costs and everything, how much did you take home? For the person whose net was $1,500, you know, it's a personal choice, but yes, you'd be looking at a pretty low number in terms of that you'd have to apply for and then put in for application. I mean, the application for forgiveness. Did I get all of them? See, now I'm getting thrown off. I should be taking notes like you, Najibe.
No, I think that's good. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question after Najibe has a chance to say things.
La pregunta es si puede usar la lista C del 2018. No puede usar el 2018. Había unos cuantos instancias que alguna gente lo estaban usando, pero la ley generalmente tiene que usarlo del 2019 y tiene que usar el neto ingreso. No puede usar el otro, tiene que usar el neto. Y la tercera parte, alguien preguntó que nada más cobró $1,500, si pueden aplicar o es una opción personal. Si tú quieres, puedes aplicar, pero el proceso es largo y después tienes que ir a hacer el proceso de perdón y la cantidad que vas a recibir no es mucho.
Great. The next question related to documentation of salary and taxes is, if I file jointly with my husband, would I just use my part of the taxes that are related to the childcare business?
It would depend on, I mean, well, first of all, at the most basic level, yes. But what I would be careful about is what documentation you're using. So if you have a 1099, for example, you can use that as documentation. If there's a Schedule C in that joint tax return for your part of that income, that's business income, and there are cases where both spouses will have Schedule Cs, that's okay, just use yours. So I would look to that documentation and be specific about it, not just like cut it down the middle or estimate. You want this to line up exactly with what you reported on your taxes.
Una de las preguntas es si yo con mi esposo hacemos los taxes juntos, ¿qué parte yo reporto? Si tú tienes tu propio 1099, puedes usar eso, o si tienes la lista C para usted misma, puede usar eso. Pero es bien importante que calcule los números de tu ingreso, no poniéndolo de tu esposo. Y tienen que hacer exactamente, no puede dividirlo por medio de los taxes.
Great. The next couple questions I'm going to ask are regarding tax implications. So the first question, if we receive the loan and it is forgiven, does this make it extra income? And then the next question is, does the PPP loan need to be claimed as 2020 taxable wages?
So this is a great question. There's two elements to it. The forgiveness is the SBA and the Treasury have said the forgiveness part of it is not coming off your taxes, right? It's not considered, and that isn't always the case. Sometimes when you have loan forgiveness, it is considered income. This will not be considered income. The question is, can you still deduct the salary that you had during that period? Currently, you cannot. A number of experts in the area, and I agree with them, believe this will be changed before the end of the year, because otherwise it's going to be extraordinarily difficult on taxes. So my guess is the federal government will say, just write that off too.
La pregunta fue si lo perdonan, si el préstamo se puede enseñar como salario, como salario extra. No, si lo perdonan, no te van a contar sobre ti como una penalidad. La otra parte de la pregunta fue si, I lost the second part. I was doing so good with my notes.
So the second part was on, see, now I've forgotten the question because I'm now focused on the next question. Isn't that awful? The income. Yeah. So the second part of it is, will the expense be able to come off your taxes? Currently it wouldn't, but I agree with a lot of experts who say it likely will.
La pregunta es si lo que cobra pueden sacar de los taxes, y por ahora no, pero creemos que la ley va a cambiar y va a poder usar eso.
Great. So we have 3 minutes left. So I am going to give Gary and Najibe one last question, but I think that might take us to our end of our time. So before I give them the next group of questions, I'm gonna just remind you all to send us questions by email. Look out for a follow-up email with a link to the recording and some additional materials. And also to just thank Gary and Najibe for this awesome presentation and for all this information, and to thank all of you for your participation today. We really hope you apply for PPP loans and get them. And so, you know, I hope that this information can be useful to you. So with that, I'm going to end with just one last question that really focuses in on what are allowable expenses for forgiveness. So one question said that when I've already got a PPP loan, my bank said that it was for my personal use and all I needed to do was keep the receipts and log how the dollars were spent. And then another question says, the website indicates that for loan forgiveness, 75% has to be spent on payroll. The other 25 can be spent on interest, mortgage, rent, utilities. So I think maybe you could just leave us with being really clear how you can spend the PPP dollars that you receive.
So you can spend them, I'll be as clear as possible, on payroll, rent, utilities, and mortgage interest, if you normally deduct it, up to 40%. Again, that number just changed Friday at 11:30, so I'm not surprised it isn't everywhere yet, and they're probably figuring out how to present it. In terms of the personal spending, no, just flatly no. And I'm sorry if the bank informed you of that. You may want to go back to them and ask for clarification, but it's quite clearly in the law that you cannot.
Great.
El préstamo se puede usar para la nómina, que es 60% del préstamo, para la renta, utilidades, los intereses hipotecarios, y eso te lo puede usar 40% del préstamo. No puede usar el préstamo para gasto personal.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Gary and Najibe, for all this incredible information. And we appreciate you all spending this afternoon with us. And we'll follow up via email. Thank you so much, and take good care.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.